Hello, everybody. This is Moumita, product manager at Amazon India. Today, we are going to talk about how to create a roadmap when there are multiple stakeholders involved. So, let's get started. A little bit of introduction. I started out as an entrepreneur in video games development, and since then, I've worked in Walt Disney and a couple of B2B and B2C companies like moved out of gaming. Um, I mean, I'd like to limit the introduction to just the essentials because we have a limited time and a vast topic to cover. So let's get started. Um, so before we go into the roadmap section, I wanted to discuss about how to treat your internal stakeholders. Treat them like your internal customers, especially when you have different teams who come to you, like legal team or operations or customer support or marketing coming to you for different needs. Um, like treat them like your internal customers. Um, they are your stakeholders. They also have their line of businesses, and they also are looking forward to uh, achieve some goals, accomplish something which may not be aligned to the product you are building for your external customer, but they do add value somewhere in the long run. So be patient with them because you have to understand where they are coming from. So instead of just straight away saying that okay, we are not going to do that requirement, or we are going to think about it, or just saying no, hear out their pain points. Hear out their problem statements because they will always come to you when they have a burning need. They'll always come to you when they have a burning desire, and most of the time it will be last moment, not well thought out, and things that is going to derail you from your plan. So the important questions that you should ask them, and you should insist in making it a habit every time they come to you, and that's where you play a role as a product manager in establishing these systems, is to be able to articulate the problem statement as to what exactly they are facing, and to give you some use cases, some scenarios where things didn't go right, and which is why they are coming to you for with some kind of solution. Sometimes they might come up with the solution by themselves, and they would just expect you to do it. So always steer the conversation back to the problem statement, ask them, understand their pain points, and always make sure you ask them these two important questions: why you should do it, like what's the benefit of doing that, and what is the cost of not doing it. What would happen if you don't do it, and guide them so that they can come up with some kind of a success metric, because they may not be familiar with KPIs like you do. Something like, say, if you do this, it will save them 3 hours of manual effort daily. That's a success metric. So something like that, you have to understand their problem, come up with a success metric, add it to your user story in the product backlog, that this is a requirement, this is a success metric, this is the cost of not doing it. So irrespective of how urgent or important or unimportant it is, whenever you have some time has passed and you've lost some context, you can always refer to these two important points of benefits and the cost of not doing it to remember and reprioritize when you should do it and why you should do it. So let's move on with the product vision. I'm just going to, yeah. So before we even go to the roadmap, I think it is easier to convince other people, especially other stakeholders and your leadership, uh, about a product vision instead of just picking up a laundry list of features that you want to do for this year. Because first of all, your team will not know why you are doing things, like what exactly you are trying to accomplish if you don't have a product vision. uh, Priorities will keep changing with time. Something else will be a hot potato, and you just you'll be running around aimless like a headless chicken, which doesn't make any sense. And sometimes I've seen people develop a three months product roadmap only to change that completely in the next upcoming quarter. So all the work done in the past quarter is completely wasted, and that's kind of demotivating. So not having a product vision is a bad thing for a product, and I've realized it after working in various companies and with various ways of roadmap planning. Some of the companies do a quarterly PI planning where every quarter they set up a roadmap. Some of them do yearly, some of them have no idea. So, a product vision is not limited by time. A product vision spans across time. It could be a 5 year plan, like what's the final end state that you want to achieve in your product, or it could be a guiding principle which you can keep following when there is no final end state for your product, like say a continuous DevOps delivery platform where you cannot have a specific end state, but you can have a guiding principle that leads you somewhere. So it's very important to have some sort of a direction as to where you are headed, and then breaking it down into yearly goals, and then breaking those yearly goals further down into quarterly goals. So this is a approach that I've seen works most of the time, and I'm going to show you how I have done it in the past. So when you're starting with a product vision, you may not know where to start. Like, what does it even mean? Or like, maybe it's just I just see the backlog and pick up some user stories. No, that's not how you do it. Your product vision, if you are not very clear, but if you must try to understand your organization's overall objective, your business goal, your product, your market, your external customers for who you're building it. Once you have those understanding very well, you can start out by asking WH questions. That's a simple framework that I follow. When you ask WH questions, it will start giving you a direction as to where you should be headed. Say, for example, why you want to build this product, who is it going to be using it, or how will it solve the problem, how are you going to do it better than your competitors, do you want to make it available immediately in this year to your customers, or do you want to do it like 2 years down the line. So keep on thinking of all the possible questions you can ask to the product using the WH questions like who, what, how, why, when, where. These are all the WH questions. Keep on asking them to the product, and you'll start shaping up a vision as to, say, you have a payments solution, like by which any business can use your payment solution to accept payments from their customers. Say, for example, something like PayPal. So your end product vision could be like you want to have a payment solution that anybody with zero technical knowledge can integrate with their business and start earning money. Now, that kind of a product vision doesn't necessarily have an end date. That's like a perpetual goal. So a couple of things come out in that kind of vision. Like you are trying to uh, make it very easy to use for any customer. So your target market is not just the developers or the advanced user, but not so advanced users. And you are also trying to be the only payment solution that any kind of business can integrate, which means your plethora of options for integrations with your payment solution has to be huge. So those kinds of things give you a direction as to how you should plan your features, what kind of features you should plan in your product once you have a vision. So a good product vision should be you should be able to articulate in just one sentence, and maybe write one paragraph around it as to how you plan to accomplish it. That's it. That's your product vision, and ask all kinds of WH questions to that vision until you are fully convinced that this is what you want to do. And you have answers for all of those questions, because when you present it to the leadership or your manager or your stakeholders, they are also going to ask you the same question. So it's better to be ready and Better to have done that homework in advance before you go to them. So once you have this idea of where your product is headed, then you can work backwards from it into building the roadmap. So coming to building your roadmap, so think of how many things are already there in your product currently. If it's not a new product, if it's a new product, then pretty much nothing is there. So think of that product vision. What are the things that you want to make available to your customers from year one immediately? And just write down a list of things. So at this point, don't hold back your imagination. Don't think about putting constraints like technical feasibility and things like that, because this is your aspiration. This is what you want to be able to do. How you do it is something we'll follow up later. But it's very important that you have a solid aspiration. So once you have done that, break it down into yearly goals in terms of what you want to deliver to the customers in year one, what you want to do it in year two, what you want to do it in year three, and so on. Maybe having 3 years goals, it's good to start with. So um, and once you have some features prioritized for your year one goals, this is when you would really want to take a look into the product backlog. Like go through the user stories that your other stakeholders have given you and see which ones fit with the overall product vision and which ones fit with your year one goals, as to which features you want to make available to your customers, which of the internal stakeholders features would additionally from behind the scenes would kind of push you towards that goal, which help your external customers too. Say for example, your legal team might have given you user stories that there you need to build a GDPR compliance. Your marketing team might ask you to run a seasonal ad campaign. Your customer support team might highlight a customer issue that they are facing, that some product breaks during transportation, which you can translate as a feedback that you have to work something around the transportation so your product is not damaged during delivery. So these are all your user stories that come from internal stakeholders, but they have their own metrics, success metrics, and they sometimes indirectly add you to the main product goals that you want to offer to your external customers. So once you go through the backlog, you'll see some themes emerging, prioritize them based on the yearly goals, and see which ones can be picked up next year. And those are the things that you can convey to your stakeholders once you are clear on what you really want to do. So now that you have some basic idea about what you want to do in year one, which are the backlog user stories given by your internal stakeholders, you have to pick in year one, and you have a solid reasoning as to why you want to do it, how it aligns with your product vision. Now it's ready to be presented to your leadership and stakeholders. So when you present this roadmap to your leadership, some of them might want to add a few things which are the hot topics that they have in their mind. So remember one thing, that people will always come to you with something that's important to them. It's your job to figure out how you can guide them to align with your goals. Try to see how you can make their requirements fit into your overall vision instead of rejecting or denying them, or see how you can help them without jeopardizing your main goals. So, if you have a limited tech bandwidth based on your product vision, yearly goals, you have to push back as a PM saying that we'll not be able to prioritize those in this quarter or this year. Uh, and that's what, as a PM, we are supposed to do. Like, we cannot say yes to everything. We have to learn to say no in a sweet way. Um, and remember that this roadmap is a live and evolving plan. Uh, like sometimes there will be situations where there's some unknown things come into your plate which you didn't apprehend, but you have to pick it up nevertheless. Sometimes it's like something else might come up which you might have to include, but if you have to completely change your yearly roadmap because of that, then it means that you have not thought through it very well. You need to do your thinking well so that you don't get derailed completely from what you wanted to achieve. So uh, I hope this helps in giving you some idea as to how you should go about creating a roadmap. And please let me know if you have any questions, any follow up, uh, experiences that you would like to share, or if you just want to reach out, please reach out to me on LinkedIn with my first name. I've made the slide also available so that you can look into my notes and the slides itself to gather tips. And remember that this is a process. Roadmap making is something that gets better and better with time and practice. So don't overexert yourself, I would say. But these are some good frameworks to follow if you really want to, have a productive discussions with your internal stakeholders and be convincing to your leadership as well. So, with this, I would like to have. I would like to end this webinar. I would really like to thank Katya, Saskia, and Janet for inviting me into this for this webinar. Thanks a lot, and hope this session helps you. And yeah, thank you.